People always ask, well, are the technicals leading or does the news lead? And what I've always found is that it always coincides. So if you have a great bull flag on a stock, you may not know that, all of a sudden this company is going to put out good earnings or good news in general, but it just coincides. It's the miracle of the charts. So that's exactly what it was, but it just happened to signal that there was this news in the pipeline. And you could argue that, did insiders know what was going to go on here? Were things like that going on? Maybe, I don't know. I'm not privy to that information, but it certainly coincides. What you said about China and the digital currency is 100% right. China wants to take over as the leading currency, the reserve currency in the world with the digital yuan. And this is their step in that direction. It is absolutely the step. And the US is going to have to fight it later on. It's going to be a big deal for the dollar later on.
What do you mean by fight it?
Well, I mean, you think about what will happen to the dollar if the dollar is no longer the main reserve currency. I mean, you'll have countries that are holding massive stockpiles of dollars and they don't need them anymore. They can sell them on the open market and get rid of them. And the dollar will see a precipitous decline if this is the case. So the U.S. is going to do their best, or at least try to keep China at bay in this regard. I don't know if it's possible, though.
Let's talk about the markets. Now, Bitcoin, of course, cryptos are not the only thing selling off today. Huge sell-off in the equities. Let's take a look at some charts, Gareth.
Yeah, absolutely. So just briefly going to Bitcoin, I know a lot of people on Twitter were asking me, where is it going to go from here? I expect to bounce off this 30,000 target level that I gave last week. I think you get maybe as high as 40 to 43,000. And then I do expect another leg down to possibly 20,000 on Bitcoin. So I think a technical bounce here is.
So we should be buying on the dip right now, or should we wait for, because last time I spoke to you, you said potentially once it breaches $30,000, it's on its way down to 20,000. So are we waiting for more dips, Gareth?
Yeah, so just on a technical basis, you hit the 200 moving average, you completed the head and shoulders. That's going to give a lift to Bitcoin over the next couple of weeks. So again, I think if we go back to the BTC US dollar chart here, you could see that, again, major support. You're already getting a bounce. You're back to 37,700. I think you go maybe back to this neckline here, which is around maybe as high as 45 to 47,000. And then that's going to be your resistance point. Then look for the next leg down to take you to about 20,000. The way I'm getting 20,000 is very simple here. Let me show this. Basically, you have the former level. Remember, in 2017, we had the high pivot just under 20,000. So basically, a retrace to that would just take us back to that level. I will be buying with all my hands at that point. I'll be buying with my feet, with my every part of my body at that point. I did pick up a little at 30,000 or just above 30,000. That was the level I gave you guys last week. But I will be looking to exit that once we get above 40,000. Yeah, so just me personally, I don't use margin for crypto trading. I use it in swing trading a little bit, but it's really up to each individual. Just remember there are usually fees associated with it, so each person should make their own decision on that.
Okay, and before we move back onto the equities, any other coins you're looking at from the crypto space? Are you trading Doge right now?
I'm not a Doge fan myself, but you have to look at Ether, right? I mean, I think Ether has a huge amount of future potential to it. I think it will be the main rival to Bitcoin in the future. It did hit major support today. You could see this former pivot and this pivot right here. So you're getting a technical bounce. Next leg down, I expect it to touch this 200 moving average around 12 to 1500. And then that is where you start loading like crazy as well. So I'd say anything below 1500 on Ether is great. I would suggest we're going to see a washout like the .coms. So stick with best of breed crypto. Whether or not Dogecoin is part of that now, I honestly don't know. It's not for me personally. So you're 100% right. And what I'm basically watching is that wedge band pattern that you just mentioned from last time. And notice where we're currently trading. I mean, today's price action is literally right on that line. If we close below that line, which happens to coincide with the 50 moving average, that's where I do think you can go out on a limb and say, okay, we've broken this band, which we've been in. If you zoom out on this, which is remarkable, the line goes back to the lows from 2020. So the COVID craziness, the panic, it goes back there. So this trend line break would be absolutely humongous for this market. And I think it would set off a sell-off all the way down at least to the 200 moving average, which is around 370 on the SPY right now.
Okay, Gareth. So how are you trading the S&P 500?
So I think at this point, any sort of close below this wedge pattern low trend line, you got to be on the short side of the S&P 500. I do think there are places to hide out where you can be at least somewhat protected if this market does push down to the 200 moving average. I continue to like Viacom. Had a great day yesterday. Today it's holding, with a little bit of losses down 53 cents, but for the most part, I think that's a good place to be. I also think looking at the Chinese stocks, I've talked about that Shanghai composite chart with you guys and how it mirrors the breakout just prior to the breakout on Bitcoin before it ran from 20,000 to, well, basically from 10,000 to 65,000. And what I like about the Chinese stocks is that if you look at them, while the markets are down to their lows, a lot of the Chinese stocks are not. So here's IQ. Look at where it's trading with the markets basically back to last week's lows. IQ is off the lows. Look at Alibaba. Alibaba is also not back to last week's lows, even though the S&P 500 is testing last week's lows. So those are little signals that kind of go to my thesis on the Shanghai composite potential upside in the second half of this year. And I think that's a place where you could see returns, even if the U.S. markets falter here.
I'm going to bring up Tesla because, again, long-term, you were right on shorting Tesla. I'm not sure if you're still short. I was reading Michael Burry started shorting Tesla. He put a large short position. I don't know if you've been talking to him on the phone. I'm kidding. But anyway, he took your side. So are you still short? Because that position did quite well over the last 6 months. If you just take a look at the Tesla chart over the last 6 months, look at that.
I mean, yeah, it's coming tremendously. I am still short. The biggest thing that I'm kind of eyeing is this trend line right here. The 200 MA got broken as well, but look at this trend line going all the way back to early 2020 and how price is now below it. So to me, this shows me a broken chart. You could also make a case for a head and shoulders, shoulder, head, shoulder, and a break point right there. So to me, this is a very bearish chart, and I'm right with Michael Burry on that one. I think this thing's heading all the way down to 400. 400 is my short-term target over the next 3 months. I'd do a swing trade as a bounce, and then I think it's going lower. So as awesome as a company as Tesla is, we have to look at the competition coming online, the margins, all this stuff. The environmental credits are eventually going away for Tesla. All these type of things, to me, just put it in the stratosphere of valuations, even at this level. It's probably worth 300 billion as a company, but certainly maybe 250 billion, but certainly not where it currently is.